Hi, and welcome to Research Methods. I'm Dr. Amy Hayes. If you're watching this video, then that means our first day of class got canceled on Tuesday because of ice, snow, etc. Get your act together, weather. I'm not here for it. But if you also know me, you know I hate getting behind. So what I want to do with this little video is introduce you to our Research Methods class so that you know what you should be reading, working on, and just what you can expect out of the class. This way we won't get behind. So I am going to go ahead and share my screen with you so that I can go over the slides that I had prepared for our first day of class, go over the syllabus with you, and walk through our Canvas course so you can see how our course is set up for you online as well. And I think you're going to still see my little floating head above the slides as I'm doing this, which is annoying, and I'm sorry, I don't know how to turn it off. But let's talk about research methods, what you should expect out of the class this semester. Work. All right, so here is the plan for this first day. I'm gonna do with you on this PowerPoint just kind of what I expected to do our first day of class, introduce you to the course, the assignments, the grading, the Canvas course, the textbook, and tell you about your first assignments. So just a little bit about me, in case you're curious. Most of you have had me in class before, which means you probably know that I got my PhD in developmental psychology from UT Austin. I'm actually from Texas. I grew up in Texas, and I'm really happy to be working here at UT Tyler. What I study and my research, which I'll talk about a lot of examples from my research this semester, are the development of stereotyping and prejudice in kids, and how being in different kinds of social groups affects academic and occupational outcomes. I have two kids, Henry and Bobby. Henry is actually turning 5 today on our first day of class, and I'm very sad that we won't be all together to celebrate it. But wish Henry a happy birthday from your snowy house. Here's what our books look like. They should be in the bookstore. I know there's been some issues with the bookstore, and I've been getting emails from students. We have one required textbook, which is this one on the left here, the Research Methods in Psychology. If you've gotten the book already, you can either get it from the bookstore or from Amazon. It's a really thin kind of paperback book. It's not a super long book. So every time I assign a chapter, that might be 8 or 9 pages of a pretty short book. It's a really good sort of handbook for you to have for research methods, but it's not going to be a really in-depth traditional textbook. This one is required, and you will be reading it throughout the semester. This one is recommended. This is the APA Publication Manual. I say it's recommended just because we don't use it as much. There are things that I do expect you to read out of it, but I often have students in this class kind of get one APA manual and share it among a group of them. You'll need it when you're learning how to format your papers that you'll write, and we'll talk about those. And I will actually be testing you on some APA format stuff. So I would recommend getting this book. It's a really good reference to have, and you definitely need to have this Research Methods book. So let's talk about what your grades are in this class. If you've taken statistics with me before, it's a very different kind of class setup than research methods. In research methods, you have 2 exams, sort of like a midterm and a final. The first exam will be about halfway through the semester, and the second exam will be at the very end. The exams are worth 45% of your grade, and then everything else is sort of split up among really applied work that we're going to do. So there's going to be an individual research paper that you're going to write, and I'll tell you about that in a second. There is a group project where you're going to be collecting data as a group and then making a PowerPoint presentation where you tell us about it, and that'll be 20% of your grade. There's going to be some smaller assignments and homework scattered throughout the rest of the semester. Pretty much all of that you'll be turning in on Canvas. That's worth 10%. And I do actually take attendance points for this class. Just the reason being, I think it seems like it's a good incentive for students to come, and this is a class where you need to be here, you need to be participating. We're going to be doing a lot of group work in class, and you're going to feel really behind if you're not here. So let me tell you about some of the projects we're going to do. The first really big project that students usually think is a lot of fun is a group project where you're going to be doing observational data collection research. And what this involves is I'm going to be putting you into groups of 4 people where you're going to come up with a research question that you can study using observational data, and I'm going to teach you what that is, of course, where you're going to be able to observe some kind of behavior in your environment, collect data about it, keep track of that behavior. We're going to learn how to analyze it, and then the final product that you're going to be turning in for this group project is a presentation. So this one, there's no paper that you're turning in. You're collecting data, you're analyzing it, and you're telling us about it in class. We'll look at the due dates for that in a second. And then the second big project that we're doing in research methods is you are going to be designing your own research study that you're going to do on your own. It's going to be an individual project where you're going to design a really short survey that's going to allow you to test some hypotheses. And you're going to design your survey. You're going to write your questions. We're going to teach you how to hand it out to people. We're going to learn how to analyze that data in class. So some of the tests that you learned how to do by hand in statistics, we're going to learn how to do those on a computer. And then you're going to write up a full-length paper about it and tell us about the results of your study. This sounds like a really big thing, like it is a really big endeavor, but the cool thing about this project is we're going to start working on it next week. And we're going to be working on it in chunks throughout the entire semester. So by the time you're actually turning it in during finals week, which is so many months from now, you're barely going to have any work left to do. We're going to write big chunks of it together in class. So it's a thing that you're going to be really impressed with the amount of work that you've done by the end of it, but it's not something you're even going to be able to procrastinate on because we're going to do it together, working on it together throughout the entire semester. Just a few things I want to talk to you about. Usually when I do these presentations in class, I have students brainstorm sort of what kind of things distract you, and I can tell you what students usually say. They say that students who are on their phones, not paying attention, messing around on their computers can be distracting, and I kind of agree with that. I don't have a no laptop policy or a no technology policy in my class. I really like technology. I think it can do a lot of really great things for you from a learning perspective. My rule is just that if the technology becomes a distraction, so if your sound's not turned off, if you're doing things on your laptops like shopping or worse, where you're sitting in front of a lot of people and it's distracting people behind you, then we might have to revisit it. But I really like to encourage you to use whatever kind of technology you need, be it a tablet, if you want to take notes on your phone, if you want to take notes on a computer, whatever is most helpful for you. I am a proponent of that. What I'm going to try to do as a professor is not waste your time in class. This is a very applied, hands-on class. I'm here to teach you some skills that you need to know, but then also guide you in the research that you're doing. So I really want to take advantage of your valuable time, and I hope that you feel like I'm doing that when we're in class together. In this class, we're going to have a mutual kind of two-way expectation of professionalism. So things you can expect from me is that I'm going to give you lots of feedback on your assignments and timely feedback on your assignments. The word on the street about me, and I hope this is what you've heard, is that I'm a pretty quick grader. I like to get you feedback on things pretty quickly. You know, really big, long assignments, and this is a pretty big class. There's like 40-something of you. It might take me a week or two to give you feedback on big writing assignments, but I'm going to be working on it and get it back to you as fast as I can. I like to give you a lot of support, either through email announcements, meeting with you outside of class. I'm happy to give you whatever support that you need. And I will be posting slides and helpful videos and things for you from time to time on Canvas. What I expect from you is really for you to be a professional in the same way back as I'm a professional with you. So make sure that you're using that technology appropriately in the classroom. And then something I always like to remind students is that email, when you're emailing an instructor, that's a professional form of communication. So what I'm going to ask you to do is expect a reasonable amount of time for me to reply. I'm not, if you email me after kind of business hours, I'm not necessarily going to get back to you on by midnight that night. I would say allow about 24 hours for an email response, and if it goes longer than that, I would send me an email and just remind me, because sometimes it can just get lost in all of the emails that I get. And then this is a really big one. You're responsible for what we cover in class. So if you're going to miss a day, if you know you have to miss a day, if you're going to be out of town, if you're sick, it's your responsibility to look at the things that I've posted, talk to a classmate that you might know to see what you missed. And then once you've kind of exhausted all of those avenues, then you can come to me and ask me any questions about the things that you've read over that we talked about in class. It's never really a good idea and to email your professor and say, hey, I missed class, did we do anything? Because of course we did something. It's your job to kind of figure out ahead of time what it is that you missed, and then you can ask me questions about it. So I want to talk a little bit more in depth about something that we're going to do throughout the semester, something new that I'm going to try this semester. I have created a little class project. This is not for a grade, it's just some example data that we're going to collect. And periodically throughout the semester, including today, I'm going to send a link out to you today. I'm going to send you a little link to a short online survey that asks you to respond to 2 items. So I'm going to ask you periodically throughout the semester what your stress level is and what your happiness level is. And the point of sending you this little survey is that I'm going to use the data that we collect as a class for examples throughout the semester when we're talking about different kinds of research designs and different kinds of analyses. It's a totally confidential survey. I'm not going to try to figure out which one of you said what, because that would be really unethical. And it's something that's voluntary and confidential. I'll never know whether or not you figured it out, whether you filled it out. I just thought this would be a really cool way for us to come up with a big data set as a class that we can use for our examples. And I always think it's more fun to look at examples that are kind of personal. So it came from us as a class. We're going to use our own data. Before we get into a little bit more of that, I am going to show you what our Canvas course looks like and go over a little bit of the syllabus with you as well. So if you get onto Canvas, this is what our course looks like in Canvas. If you click on this first link, you can find my information, where you can find me, what my office hours are. And as you'll notice, as this opens up, one thing you'll probably notice if you came and saw me at all last semester or any previous semester, you'll notice that this is a new office number. So I did just move offices right before the beginning of this semester. I'm now in BEP 252. It's right down the hall from Mr. Carrillo's office, our advisor. And there we go. That's me, BEP 252. If you knew Dr. Schmidt, this was Dr. Schmidt's old office. I am going to have office hours on Mondays from 10 to 12 and Wednesdays from 10 to 11. I know that's not going to be able to fit everyone, so if you can't meet with me during my office hours, you can always email me and set up an appointment. Here's my email address and my office phone number. Here's the way our Canvas course is really set up. All of this stuff, when you come into our course, all of this stuff right here is sort of really good introductory, helpful information. Here's links to where you can get the textbooks. Here's a link to where you can download the syllabus, which I'll show you in a second. And then if you look at the remainder of the class, I have it organized into these weekly modules. So here's our first week, here's our second week, and every week is basically just going to have a couple of things. It's going to have a landing page that's going to tell you, hey, what are we doing this week? Here's links to any assignments. And then it's also going to have a little page where you can download the slides from the week. So that's where you can find the slides posted. These are the slides I'm going to kind of be going over today and also next week a little bit. And as you look down, all of the weeks are organized like that. Over on the right side of our class, you're going to see different assignments that are going to be due and assignments that are coming up and when they're due. And you can either click on them there or you can click on them within the weekly module. It'll take you to the same place. And then if you want to download the syllabus from right here, I would recommend doing that. Here's what the syllabus looks like. It also has all of my contact information again. It tells you about all of those assignments that I discussed, the grade breakdown, and the most important thing in the syllabus is this course calendar right here. So it shows you every week of the class, what are we talking about, and what kind of things are due, whether it's just reading or whether there's actual assignments or exams that we're going to be doing in class. All right, so please make sure you read through the syllabus before you come to class next week. And one thing that you've probably noticed by looking at the syllabus and looking at our to-do for this week, and this is why one reason I was really freaking out about not having class on the first day of class, is that as you'll see on the syllabus, we do not have class for me this Thursday. The reason being, I was asked to be on a Texas Higher Education Coordinating Board Committee to talk about psychology curriculum in the state of Texas. And so I have to be in Austin this week, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, to work on this state committee. So I had already planned on being out of town this Thursday, so it's written into the syllabus like that. We will not be meeting and having class this week. There are a couple of assignments that I do expect you to turn in on Thursday, though, in lieu of having class. And I'll talk about those more in a second. One of them is just a quiz about the syllabus, a little syllabus quiz. That should be a really easy grade for you. It's a small assignment grade. You can click on it and it'll just ask you about 6 questions about details from the syllabus. It's okay to even have the syllabus open right there while you're taking the quiz. That's totally fine with me. And it lets you take it twice. So even if you miss some of the questions on the syllabus quiz the first time, you can take it again. So should be some really easy points for you. All right. So we're almost done with our little introduction here. I just have a few more things that I want you to start thinking about before you come to class next week. So one of the big things that we're going to be talking about this semester is how do we know what it is that we say we know when it comes to psychology. So all of you have probably heard different headlines, or you remember learning in different classes, oh yeah, some study said that parents are happier than non-parents. Or I heard that people choose romantic partners that are similar to them in terms of attractiveness. So like really hot people date other really hot people, etc. And you may have even heard that people who drink black coffee are psychopaths. That was a headline I saw on the news a couple years ago. So when you see these news headlines or you hear people telling you these things like, oh, I saw a psychology study that said XYZ, how do we know that these things are true? Do we know that these things are true? And how can we figure that out? So one of our really big class goals is going to be to engage in critical thinking and become critical consumers of scientific information. And this is the point where if I'm in person talking to you all, I usually ask, well, what does critical thinking mean? And that's something I'm going to pose to you when I see you next week in class. But usually I think critical thinking means when somebody tells you something, don't just take it at face value. Don't just say, oh yeah, that sounds right. I want you to be able to engage with that information, think about where it came from, and go figure out whether or not you think that source is credible. That's a really big skill that you're going to get out of this class. So when you're watching the news and you hear about science in the media, like, oh, scientists say that having kids play makes their brains better than just sitting at a desk and doing traditional learning all day. How do we know these things? And it's really easy to forget that there's this whole scientific process underlying all of these studies that we see in the media, and that by the time that it gets to the point where you're reading a headline on the news, there was a really lengthy process of designing a study, collecting data, doing the statistics to analyze the data, and writing it to the point before it gets to the point where we hear some kind of blurb about it in the news. So just to get back to the earlier question, let's think about, have you heard of or read media reports about any kind of psychology research that you just kind of questioned without, just kind of accepted without thinking about it? Or do you ever remember being skeptical of research that you heard about in the media? And if you were skeptical, think about what was it that made you skeptical? Are you one of those people that thinks that all science kind of sounds too good to be true? So there's really two ways you can be on that spectrum. I have a funny example that I want to show you before we finish here. I remember waking up, I always watch Good Morning America, which is one of those probably old lady news shows to watch in the morning. But there was a day where all the news anchors were freaking out and saying, a new study shows that people who drink black coffee are psychopaths. And by black coffee, I assumed they just meant people who drink coffee without any cream or sugar in it. So thankfully, I put a lot of stuff in my coffee, so I'm not a psychopath. But I remember hearing that headline and thinking, there's no way that's actually a thing. How did they find that link? What kind of study did they do? And it kind of made me wonder, okay, I have a PhD in psychology, so I know how to figure this out. But what do people who don't have these tools think when they hear a finding like that? So what I want you to get to the point of this semester is, when you hear a ridiculous sounding headline like that, can you go figure out what they actually did and be a critical thinker about it? So let me just tell you, in case you're curious, I actually went and looked up this study. And what the researchers actually did is just gave college students a bunch of surveys about how much they liked a bunch of different types of foods. So sweet foods, sour foods, savory, salty, and bitter foods like coffee and radishes, which are bitter, I guess. And they just had them rate, how much do you like each of these things? So like, how much do you like beef jerky? How much do you like chocolate? How much do you like coffee? Now notice it doesn't say black coffee, it just says coffee, and everybody likes coffee. And what they did is they took these ratings and they correlated them with some personality questionnaires that they gave out, like a psychopathy measure and narcissism measure. And what they found was a really small but significant correlation between people saying they really, really liked bitter food better than everything else, and psychopathic tendencies. So there was a small correlation between saying like, yeah, I hate chocolate, but I love radishes, and being a psychopath, which really isn't as strong of a finding as they made it sound when you watch it on the news. So I read this feeling a little bit better about my friends who I know drink black coffee, because I don't think that that necessarily means they're a psychopath. So that's what I want you to learn how to do. Find a headline, figure out where the information is actually coming from, and then evaluate that primary source information. So that's what you're going to be doing for your first assignment. And if you look on Canvas, this is posted there on Thursday by the end of class. I want you to complete this evaluating claims and evidence assignment. So what you're going to do is just go on the internet and find one news article that reports on the findings of some kind of scientific research. So you can look at any kind of news website. So New York Times, CNN, Fox News, ABC.com, Huffington Post, anywhere that kind of posts any kind of science news. And just scroll through the day's headlines. There will probably be at least one headline that says something like research shows, or study finds, or scientists now say that cats cure cancer. So I want you to find one headline like that, read the article, just the news article that's posted, and then complete this little assignment that I have posted on Canvas. So you're going to read the article. I want you to tell me what the name of the article is that you found and where you found it. And it's actually really helpful if you can include the hyperlink to the article on there. Tell me what it sounds like the main findings of the research were according to this news article. Then tell me, can you tell what kind of study they did? So was it a survey? Was it a lab study? Can you tell if they did brain scans? What kind of study did they do? Did they interview people? Or even just say there's no details about that. They included no details. I want you to tell me, do you think it sounds credible? Do you believe it? Do you believe the findings? Do you believe they're as strong as the article makes it out to be? And then the last question, and maybe the most important question, is what kind of follow-up questions do you have that you think would help you determine whether or not these findings are credible. So that's what I want you to do. Basically, just find a news article about a scientific study and break it down and think about, start thinking a little bit more critically about it. So you're going to do the syllabus quiz that should take you like 2 minutes, should be easy points, and this evidence assignment. And that's what you're doing instead of coming to class on Thursday. So as you're sitting there at your computer or on your phone, say it with me. No class this Thursday, January, whatever the date is, 18th, because I'm going to be at a conference in Austin. So just do your syllabus quiz. So read the syllabus, do the quiz, do the evidence assignment, and I will see you in person next Tuesday in class. I hope you all have a safe week. Don't drive in the ice. Don't drive in the snow. We don't know how to do that in Texas. And I will see you as soon as I get back. All right.